Hey, John Martinez here with the REI Sales Academy, and I want to give you a quick tip on how you can beat your competition, how you can really discredit your competition without saying anything bad about them at all. So the truth of the matter is, everything's highly competitive now. In every market across the country, investors are usually up against other investors. So how do you beat them? How do you discredit them? How do you show your prospect, the home seller, that you're better than them without, again, saying anything bad about them, because you can never do that? Well, you first need to know your competitive advantage. You need to know your competition, or at least have a really good idea of how you might be better than them. And you're going to want to allow your prospect to discover on their own that you're better than them. So let me give you an example. Let's pretend you're taking down a property yourself. You've got proof of funds, you're ready to go. You're up against competition who you think or you know they're going to have to sign the property. They're going to have to find a buyer, right? So how would you relay this information to your prospect without throwing your competition under the bus? Well, what you want to do is pretend. You want to assume that your competition is just as good as you are. It sounds like this. Hey, Mr. Seller, let me ask you this. As they, lined everything out and, showed you proof of funds, so you knew for sure that they were going to be able to buy your house and not have to go find a third party to buy it and find the cash and really put you in a tough position if they couldn't, right? Them having your house under contract, not being able to find a buyer, and you kind of being left out in the cold. When they showed you that proof of funds and all the paperwork necessary so you could really be sure and be confident that the deal was going to close, were you happy with the paperwork they laid out? So you want to assume your competition is just as good as you are. Now here's what can happen. Now they'll most likely say, well, no, they didn't show me that. In which case, you want to downplay it. You want to kind of pull it back and say something like, well, you know what, maybe that's not important. And you want them to discover what's important or not important. Now they might say, no, it's not that big of a deal. Hey, no harm, no foul, right? Or maybe they did show proof of funds. And they say something like, yeah, I did see that and I was pretty happy with what I saw. Great, that's important. I'm going to show you the same. I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. Again, no harm, no foul. So the downside of this strategy is, hey, you can't lose. Maybe it's not important to them. Maybe they did see that proof of funds or whatever you want to show them. And again, no harm, no foul. If they did, then no big deal. But maybe, just maybe, and most likely if you know what you're doing and you know your competition, you are going to allow your prospect to discover, wow, there's something missing. And then when you lay into them with you know what, maybe that's not a big deal, they're going to come to the realization that your competition is lacking something. And as you downplay it, they'll probably respond with something like, it kind of is a big deal. I want to make sure that they are able to close. And you can continue on with your presentation, with your offer, with anything else. So just to recap again, when you want to beat competition, which you always do, especially if they've got a higher offer on the table, you need to find your competitive advantage. So always assume that your competition is just as good as you are, and let the home seller figure out on their own that they're not. Hope this helps. See you.